Welcome to Hobie on YouTube. I've got a new knife we can look at this time. New as in newly manufactured, as opposed to a vintage knife like I usually show. I think the knife's actually about 2 years old. I picked it up last fall, 2022, and obviously it's a case. I've been trying to buy American when I buy new knives, and I know that kind of limits my choices and options, especially when you're looking at traditional pocket knives. But I'm really trying to support the few American companies that are left doing this. So Case obviously is one of those, and this is Case's Copperhead pattern, and that was Case's 2021 Vault release. And so if you don't know about that, what Case does each year is they will take a pattern that they haven't had currently in production, and they'll bring it back for 1 year. And so it's kind of a limited edition as far as the time is concerned. They'll sell as many as they can. They sold as many as they could of these in 2021. And so it's not limited in number, but then when 2021 goes away, they stop making them. There may still be some out there unsold sitting, at retailers. But as far as Case is concerned, manufacturers just limited to 1 year. So this one actually is a special factory order of a Copperhead, and so it comes in a little nicer packaging. And here's the Case's pattern number for the Copperhead. And so yeah, it comes in a little nicer packaging. This one's in a little velvet presentation box. And this one is in antique bone with a snakeskin laser etch in the bone. And I've had a special factory order Case knife like this before. I'll put the link up on the screen. I had a Seahorse Whittler in green bone with tortoise shell etching in the bone handles. It was really pretty. But I'll tell you why I got this knife and what it reminds me of. So last fall, my wife and I took another trip out west. We like to go out there and camp. And this time around, we went up through the Dakotas. We went through South Dakota, Badlands, the Black Hills area, and stopped in a lot of little towns like Deadwood. And then we went up through North Dakota, went to both the south and the north units of Teddy Roosevelt National Park. We saw all kinds of great wildlife, buffalo, of course, but also, bighorn sheep, mountain goats, which they had imported into those parks at some time. This is really cool. We had a great time. So I wanted to get a knife that commemorated that trip. As a matter of fact, every time I go on one of these camping trips out west, whether it's Colorado or Arizona or Utah or whatever, I'm always looking for a knife to kind of commemorate the trip, but I always fail to get one. I even stopped one time at a big knife store right on Route 66. I think it was near Winslow, Arizona. And they had no knives in that shop that said anything about Route 66 or commemorated Route 66, which is kind of what I was looking for. So anyway, if you've ever been into, any of these national park gift shops or something similar, you can't get a decent knife there, right? There are all these, cheap little knives with everybody's different name engraved in them. So, hey, you can get one that says, hey, Betsy or whatever, but it's a POS. So I had to wait till I got back, and that was too bad. But when I got back, I said, I'm going to get a knife that reminds me of all my trips out west. So I got this one for several reasons. First of all, it's a Copperhead, and, it's just a kind of a snake, so I think it's kind of reminds me of the West. I thought it was really pretty cool that you could get a Copperhead pattern with a snakeskin etching in the handles. Now this isn't perfect because this is a diamondback rattler, right? It would be perfect if it were hourglasses, like a Copperhead actually has. But I thought it was pretty cool, snakeskin on a Copperhead knife. And then of course it's got a bullet shield here with the Case XX, and then the XX, the double-tested XX, engraved in the bolster. That just really reminds me of a branding iron, a ranch's brand or something. So the whole thing just kind of reminded me of the West, and I bought it just really kind of commemorate the trips I've taken out there. I don't know if cowboys or anybody out in the Old West actually used the Copperhead pattern. I know it is wouldn't be way back, but Case actually did introduce this pattern before World War I according to them, they say that this was before the case double-tested era. So before World War I, they were using the Copperhead. And you probably know this, but this knife is called a Copperhead because of the unusual shape of this bolster here, where it rises up and covers or protects that raw end of the tang, so there's no sharp edge there of the knife blade to rub a hole in your pocket. It's like a canoe on one end, right, and a trapper on the other. And I really like the pattern, and I've had it before. I do have a Boker like this. I meant to bring that down so I could compare, but I forgot. But I will tell you that Case's Copperheads are a little different. They're about 4 inches long, which is kind of standard. Weigh about 3.2 ounces, so they're very pocket friendly. But instead of having two full-length blades, they have a big blade and a small blade. Now, Copperheads traditionally will have two blades that open from the same end here. And Case's main blade is a clip point blade, which is what you usually see. And Cases are in their, what do they call it, true sharp surgical stainless steel, whatever that is. But I do know they polish it up really pretty, and they hand sharpen them still, and this one has a very nice edge, a nice even grind to it. So I was very pleased with that. It's extremely sharp. Case does a really fine job in hand finishing their knives. I can't say that the fit and finish is always great. We know that's not true, but I think we'll all admit they do a pretty good job buffing up their knives. So they're usually pretty nice to see and handle, at least when they're new. This knife has a nice crisp half stop on the main blade. Here is Case's tang stamp, Case XX on this one, with an arrangement of dots that, if you know how to decipher that, will tell you the year of manufacture. So Case has been doing that for a number of years now, where if you know how to read these, you'll know the exact year your knife was made. The knife has excellent walk and talk. Here's where Case knives depart a little bit from other Copperheads that I've seen and had. Instead of a second full-length blade, they've put in a smaller spear point blade here, like a little pen blade. And I have mixed feelings about that. I like the idea that you have two different size blades. You've got a small one you could do detail work with, but I do think, and it's got a nice half stop too, I do think that it wastes a little bit of real estate here in the knife. And I think the true reason that Case does that is they're just trying to save on steel. I've noticed that recently, or over the last many years, Case knives seem to be getting narrower blades that maybe are a little thinner, but they're more delicate and they're not as big. And I think the reason is the steel's probably the most expensive component of the knife, and they're looking to cut costs wherever they can, stay price competitive. If you want to know what I'm talking about, go look at an old saddle horn, old Case saddle horn compared to a new one, or an old Case gun stock pattern compared to a new one, and look at the difference in the width and the size of the blades. I really love this etching. I guess that's done with a laser. The thing I like the most about it, I think, is that with the antique bone, it looks pretty much like a snake hide, or skin rather. And on the top, it looks like the rattlesnake's back. But instead of just copying that on the reverse of the knife, they did a different pattern that looks like the snake's belly. So I thought that was very thoughtful and makes the knife very interesting, I think, to have a different obverse and reverse pattern on the scales. I would say the overall build of this knife is really excellent. The two blades are well centered, and the transitions are smooth, the pins are flush, everything is straight and true. The back is tight. Got very little gaps, little one here, between the liners and the springs and the covers, but it's pretty tight. And as I said, the walk and talk on it is very pleasant. A great snap and good half stops. So I'm super pleased with the quality of the knife. And I'm just pleased with the knife because it just reminds me of those great trips that I've been able to take out west. It just reminds me of that area of the country and the wildlife out there and the history and everything else. So that's why I got the knife. I don't know if there's any of these still available. I did buy this at Deadwood Knives, which is kind of another tie-in to my trip through the Dakotas. We did go to Deadwood. If you don't know Deadwood, go look them up. They're an online retailer that has really good prices and free shipping. This isn't a plug for them, but I bought several knives from them, and they've always been really good to deal with. And they often carry this kind of thing, some special factory orders. Again, I don't know that this one in particular is still available, but there's always others. Now, they say this knife is one of 500, but I don't think it really makes it rare. They said that about my green Seahorse Whittler in tortoise scales too. So what they do is they take different patterns. And, well, sure, you know, there's only 500 Copperheads in antique bone with the snakeskin etching. But there is another 500 Copperheads in antique bone with lizard skin etching. And there's another 500 with spider webs. And there's another 500 with tortoise shell, you know, on and on. So they do quite a lot of these. And it doesn't really make them rare, I guess, but it does give you a lot of different choices to pick from to get something that you like. All right. Case Copperhead in antique bone with snakeskin etching. Case is 2021 vault release. So they're not making these right now in 2023, but I'm sure there's still a lot of Copperheads for sale out there. Thanks for watching.